with Wray Nephew, all about taking you behind the scenes at Appleton Estate. So we have special guests, David Morrison and Thomas Roulston here. Also, Matt Pietrek will be joining us momentarily. Matt's your host on this today. As you know, if you've joined us previously, I know he's having some thunderstorms down there in New Orleans. Actually, it looks like Matt's here. I'm going to try adding him in now.
Yeah, there we go.
There you are, Matt. Looking better now.
Excellent. Good. Glad to hear that.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we get started, my name is Will Hookinga from Zavvy.co, and want to give you the lay of the land real quick if this is your first time joining us. I know I see several familiar faces over here, lots of people from all over the world. I see Edinburgh, San Francisco, Sweden, Atlanta, England, Massachusetts. That's awesome to see. Hey, everyone. Hope you're doing well. So as you may have noticed, there is a chat window to the right. Feel free to let us know where you're tuning in from. That's always cool to see. And if you have a question at any point during the presentation, you'll see a little button at the bottom in the middle of the screen that says Ask a Question. So just press that and enter your question there. Matt and I will be keeping an eye on those questions throughout the presentation, and I think we'll be saving some time at the end for a little bit of Q&A. Also, share the event. If you'd like to invite your friends to join us, there's a button at the top right that says Share that lets you do that. But with all that said, Matt, I will turn things over to you and let you introduce our guest today. And Matt, you may have yourself muted, it looks like.
Thank you. Yes, I did have myself muted. Yeah. Thank you, Will. Pleasure to be here. This is our 5th session we've done, and more in the pipeline. Just to briefly tell you what we're doing here, these are a series of sessions that we, the West Indian Rum and Spirits Producers Association, are doing to bring you face to face with the people who are making their rum in the Caribbean. WRSPA has 14 member countries, and across those 14 countries, there's something like 25 or 30 producers. One of them, of course, being Wray Nephew from Jamaica. You may better know them as Appleton, but they are here today. I'm very excited about this presentation. So let's have Thomas and David introduce themselves very briefly, and then we'll get to the good stuff. Thomas, why don't you start?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thomas Roulston. I am the distillery manager for the Appleton Estate Distillery. I joined in some 15 to 16 years ago, and I'm still here trying to create magic with the rums that's been a sensation around the world.
And David.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Morrison. I am the Quality and Compliance Director as well as the Senior Blender here at Wray Nephew. And of course, because of that association, there is a direct connection with the Appleton Estate because, this is where all of the magic takes place here, with the blending and the provision of all those wonderful products you all have come to know and love. So it's my pleasure to be here today to share some of this Appleton joy with you.
Thank you both of you. And so I think at this point, David's going to jump in and get his slide on the screen.
All right, so welcome to our little piece of Jamaica here with WRSPA today. For a lot of you who are not able to travel to Jamaica because of COVID, let me try and take Jamaica to you through this presentation as we kind of bring you into the Appleton home to kind of share with you, some of the magic behind the scenes as well as to share the passion that we have for this brand here in Jamaica with you. Now, as most of you will know, rum is a very traditional part of the Caribbean culture. It's been around here in the Caribbean since the 17th century. Very old, very linked with Caribbean culture, and it goes back to the plantation history and our realization that from this wonderful sugarcane we could start making this magical spirit called rum. And of course, I'd like to think that Jamaica has, perfected the craft. We at Appleton Estate have perfected the craft, and we're here to share some of the things that we've learned along the way with you. Now, rum is absolutely perfectly suited for, let's make sure I'm on the right side here, right? Absolutely perfectly suited for being produced here in Jamaica. And it has a really long history in Jamaica. In Jamaica here, we have Wray Nephew, which was established in 1825, and it's impossible to speak about rum in Jamaica without speaking about Wray Nephew. So I'll just kind of give you some of the connections over time. In the 1860s, we had Charles Ward, who became the business partner of John Wray in 1825, who established the Wray Nephew in 1825, and thus we had the formation of the company in Jamaica. All right. Now, Appleton Estate is the oldest sugar factory and distillery in continuous production in Jamaica, with the first distillation dating back all the way to 1749. And the estate itself dates back to about 1670, when the owner, the founder, Francis Dickinson, arrived in Jamaica and named the Appleton Estate after his home in the UK. And of course, for those of you who've been to Jamaica, who've had the privilege of visiting the estate, you would know it's also the home of the Joy Spence Appleton Estate Rum Experience, which was originally opened in 1988 and has gone through a fabulous upgrading. So for those of you who have not been yet, please make your way down and come and enjoy. Now, when we think about the estate itself, we have to start thinking about where the estate itself is located. Jamaica itself is a magnificently beautiful country. It is, chock full of all sorts of wonders and things that make any experience in Jamaica memorable. But it really is quite special, and you will recognize this when you visit the actual Appleton Estate and realize that there are some very unique things about the estate which really have a really big impact on our final product, our rum. The estate itself is located in the Nassau Valley, which actually is a part of what we call the cockpit country, and I'll explain what that means in a little bit. And what you'll find is that we have very, very interesting and unique weather patterns that are at play at the distillery almost all year long. So what you'll find is that our mornings tend to be very warm, very sunny, and our afternoons tend to be dotted with these nice tropical showers, and that pretty much occurs almost all year long. Some points of the year are a lot wetter than others, but we are blessed to have a wonderful natural way of treating with the sugar cane that we have growing in this particular area. The soil itself is really rich in nutrients, which makes it excellent for growing sugarcane. And I'll also explain why that is in a few minutes. And as I previously mentioned, the Nassau Valley forms a part of Jamaica's cockpit country. Now, you may wonder, what is the significance? And I keep talking about the cockpit country. I mean, at the end of the day, what you'll find is that the cockpit country is made up of what we call karsts and poles, which are very specific geological formations, which are found in only 3 places in the world, right? So there's one in Jamaica, little old Jamaica. There's one in China. There's one in Serbia and Montenegro. And this unique landscape is quite special. I mean, for those of you who've been to the estate and, you're rolling into the estate, you get into the Nassau Valley, you're looking around and it's fantastic. It's green. You have these beautiful dome-shaped hills surrounding the valley. Those are what we call karsts, which are rare landscapes composed of cone-like limestone hill formations. And these hill formations are very important because they act as natural water filters. And so all the water that comes into the estate for use in our production process actually gets naturally filtered through these limestone hills. And there's a very important significance to that, which I'll mention a little later. Now, the valley itself is what we call the Pohe, which is a valley that's been formed through the action over the years of flooding of rivers and the recession of these floodwaters. And what you find is that all of the minerals that would have been deposited in these landscapes, in these hills, get settled in the soil within which we're growing our sugarcane. So it really makes for an incredibly fertile and beautiful area, when you're talking about visiting Jamaica and seeing and trying to understand why is Appleton Estate rum so special. And we are, in fact, the only sugar estate that is located in a Pohe, right? So very unique. And we start talking about things like terroir, you can start to feel and understand that this unique geology provides us with a very unique set of growing conditions that are demarked by 3 main things. So geography, soil, and weather. all coming together to form, what I can only call the perfect place within which to grow our sugarcane and to really start the process of producing these amazing rums. So when you take a look at our rum making process, it's very straightforward. I mean, it's pretty standard, and it's the unique points within our process where we create these unique demarcations in our product that stand out or causes our product to stand out, with very strict attention to quality all the way throughout our process. So it all starts for us with sugarcane and the conversion of sugarcane to sugar. And from that sugar manufacturing process, we're of course producing sugar, and we're also producing molasses, which then gets fed over into our distillery operations, where it's diluted with that same natural spring water I mentioned earlier. It's fermented, it's distilled, it's aged, and then of course the blenders get to go to work to produce the amazing blends that you're familiar with, and then we bottle and we get to you guys out to market. So I will now have a quick conversation with you about molasses. We are in fact very fortunate because we do have quite a bit of control over the molasses that's going into our process. So we harvest our sugarcane after about 10 to 12 months, at which point in time we found we get the optimal yield in terms of the sugar content. And the sugar is fed into our sugar manufacturing facility, our sugar factory, where the sugarcane is crushed, the juice is extracted, and that juice is used to produce sugar. And as I mentioned before, one of the byproducts of that sugar manufacturing process is molasses. Now, that molasses contains up to about 60% sugar, which, it's still very rich in sugar and suitable, perfectly suitable for our manufacturing processes on the rum making side, right? So it's a part of the beautiful control that we have over our process. Now, of course, the molasses at 60% sugar is way too concentrated in terms of the sugar content for us to actually take it through our manufacturing steps. And so the first thing that we need to consider is the whole business of diluting that sugar concentration down to a level that makes it suitable for the preceding steps that follow in the rum manufacturing process. So to the molasses, we add our water. And it's not just any old water, as I've been preaching to you guys before. So it's really the most pristine, high quality water that you can imagine. And you can see the nice picture represented on the background in the slide, which is an actual picture of our water source, which is an upswell of water in a spring. And this water has actually been filtered through the same limestone hills that form the karsts, which is another reason why the karsts are so important to us. And that natural filtration gives us this beautifully soft water that has a really nice, slightly sweet taste to it. And this is the water that's going to be used in our manufacturing process. Now, another critical element to our manufacturing process is yeast. And we use a cultured yeast that's been propagated on the estate, that's literally been handed down from generation to generation. And in fact, we take the control of our yeast so seriously that we do have, this particular yeast stored in a number of locations to try to manage the whole business of business continuity. As far away as Europe, we've got strains of this yeast being stored. So it's really important to appreciate that, there are lots of different strains of yeast out there that will or can be used for your fermentation process. But the specific strain is important, and maintaining that strain is important if you want to maintain the consistency in the profile of your final product that is being fed into your distillation process. So the strain of yeast for us is proprietary. We don't use commercial yeast in this particular process of manufacturing rum at the Appleton estate. And it's just another one of those elements that, really, I think, showcases just how specific we are and how important maintaining consistency and quality is in our manufacturing process. Because at the end of the day, it all comes through in what that rum will smell like and what that rum will taste like. So I will now hand over to Thomas, who will walk you through some of the manufacturing aspects now of the actual rum making process.
Okay. Thank you, David. Just to recap that we have used the blessed water that has been described to you, from the very pristine cockpit country that we know so well, and that we're revered, and we have taken all the steps to protect. And in our process, we come in with molasses that is at a very high brix, and we would need to do a dilution to ensure that we continue the process to prepare for fermentation. So we go through a first process we call pasteurization. And this, what we aim to do is to do the dilution, to acidify to the standard pH that we have set in our process, and also to ensure that we are giving the molasses the temperature range in order to ensure that we have control over those wild yeast and other microorganisms that may affect the process. So right there, we do the dilution, we adjust the brix and the pH, and from there, we go to another process we call clarification. Of course, the molasses will come in with solids, and we would want to ensure that going forward to the fermentation process, that we separate those solids that will affect our process going forward. So mud and other solid particles are removed using a settling process, and this process is actually handled via gravity. It is a system that cascades and helps us to settle out as the molasses cools and become ready for our fermentation that we will do. So now we are at the place where we will do fermentation. And of course, as David indicated, in all the processes that we execute, quality is at the forefront of what we do. So fermentation, very simply put, is the process by which sugar is converted into alcohol and other byproducts. Those of us who are distillers would know that there is CO2, which is also part of that process.
Hey, Thomas, do you capture the CO2?
Could you repeat?
Do you capture the CO2?
Okay, not currently, but what we do, we have a process of scrubbing and to make sure that at the end of the day, it is not carried directly into the atmosphere. So we put it through a scrubbing system, which is a watering process to convert CO2 to a weak acid, which will be carbonic. And by further dilution, we have no impact on the environment. Where we do, I'll tell you later down the road that we have a process to handle any fallouts there. Okay, so we have gone through fermentation, which is ensuring that we achieve the alcohol percent that we want. And basically, we aim for alcohol percent of about 7%. This level of alcohol will aid us in our processes going forward, and we will ensure that we reduce the length of our crop, which is one of the approaches that we take. Higher alcohol in molasses will ensure that we are able to reduce timeline by extracting more. So distillation, the process that we know will separate liquids based on their volatility point. So Appleton Estate has two types of distillation processes that we practice. One is the batch type, and the other is the continuous type. So we have at the pot still area 5,000 gallons pot stills, and the pot still rums that are produced at Appleton Estate are very flavorful and aromatic, and impart the distinctive orange peel character that is a hallmark of the Appleton Estate rums.
And Thomas,
go ahead.
Those are double retort pot stills, correct?
Could you repeat?
Those are double retort pot stills?
That's correct, Matt.
Okay, and who makes them?
Okay, our pot stills are manufactured by 4 sites.
Okay.
All right, so that I was speaking to the orange peel notes, and of course, those are very important in the material that the distillate that we will produce and will be used to develop our rums. Our column stills, which are continuous stills, they produce less flavorful rums, as you know, but they are more versatile. They can produce anything from light rums to pure alcohol. The column still rums that are produced at Appleton are primarily used to balance the flavor and the aroma profile of the pot still rums that we manufacture. Stainless steel, sorry?
I was going to say, so is there's no copper at all in the column still path?
We have basically stainless steel continuous stills. There is a section that is mildly copper we use to do our extraction.
Okay. And how many column stills are there?
So we have 2 sets of column still at the Appleton estate.
Okay. And are they like a traditional, like a single column like you would see in Martinique, or a double column, a coffee? Like what type of columns are they?
Right. So what we have one type that is a double column, and another which is a beer column with a mid column attached, which is an extension to the beer, and a rectification column.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So the rum mash that we produce is a particular cut of rum that is developed by and is unique to rum producers. Each mark of rum has its own flavor and aroma profile. And we ensure that these marks fit the quality profile that is required to take the process of manufacture of rums to the palate very, very securely.
All right, so I will take over from here for the next few slides.
Real quick, I had a quick question for Thomas. So
Sure.
Can you share anything about the range of marks? Like what are perhaps like the heaviest marks that you make at Appleton?
Okay, our heaviest marks are mainly pot still marks, and our marks are very on the pot stills would be low ester ranges, the first level of ester range of rum, and on the column stills would be the light rums. Those are very low in ester.
Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead, David.
Right. So, I mean, and to kind of follow up on the question you just asked, Thomas, I mean, for those persons familiar with the estate range, you'll realize it's very different from, for example, things like the Wray Nephew white overproof rum in terms of the funk and the pungency of the aromas. For the estate range, it's a bit more on the what I'd call the sophisticated side, whereby we do try to keep the general ester counts, I would say, on the fairly lower side relative to some other products out there that are a lot higher in terms of the ester contents. And that really is the focus of what we try to do at the Appleton estate.